historic homelands of the various bands of Kauai people, and we honor the unique relationship that we hope emerges between our community and the indigenous people in their traditional territories. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Kauai people whose lands and water we benefit from today. Before we begin, we also want you to know that it doesn't matter where you or your ancestors are from, who you love, your gender identity, your theology, politics, or your immigration status. We welcome all those who are committed to our core values as expressed in our 7 principles. Together, we come to this place to share our hopes, dreams, and visions. We seek to build a diverse and inclusive community that honors our first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Thank you for being with us this morning. Please consider making a donation with our virtual offering basket. Your contribution is an important way to support UUCOD and today's Share the Plate recipient, Find Food Bank. Those of you watching on Zoom can just click the link provided in our weekly constant contact order of worship you received on Friday, or at the end of the service today through the email link you will receive. If you are here in the room, there are offering baskets next to each door where you can drop your contribution. If you would like to be on our email list to learn more about us and our programming, please contact us at admin@uucod.org. And now we will ring our Tibetan bowl to begin our service, and then listen to our music for centering.
Good morning and welcome. However you found us, however many times you've been here with us in person or online, welcome. We are a congregation grounded in our commitment to love and an evolving tradition that that celebrates the richness and beauty of our individual lives and commits us to working together to weave a tapestry made stronger and more vibrant by our collaboration and by the sharing of our lives and our visions for a thriving, loving, and just future for all of life. Ursula Le Guin tells us that light is the left hand of darkness and darkness the right hand of light. Two are one, life and death lying together like lovers, like hands joined together, like the end and the way. This time when our hearts and our spirits experience both darkness and light, when life and death both surround us. We gather here in this community to be reminded of who we are, to be called deeper into balance together. With our hands joined and our hearts alive, we gather and greet the morning in worship. And I can't tell you how much it delights me to say to you, please rise, body or in spirit, as we sing together our opening hymn, Morning Has Come. The words are on the screen.
Candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as they journey towards spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail.
Now I'd like to invite Jean Kane forward to tell us a little bit about
Dobro utro, as they say in Ukraine. My name is, good morning, my name is Eugene Kane. I'm an artist, worked on several media. Metal is one of them. Sculptures that are gracing this sacred garden, and by me in the last 5 years. I'm extremely grateful to the church for accepting the work, recognizing it, and allowing it to rest their new home. I couldn't hope for a better home than this. I'm extremely grateful. A month or two ago, we acquired two pieces from Wisconsin, and that was only possible by the generosity of a number of people who made donations and allowed the transportation and the installation. I'd like to read those names. Hiroshi Yamaguchi, Matthews, Rod Belshi, Ann Hogue, Tony Paddock, Bill Masco, Denise Eager, Chris Eager, Barb Kate, Steve Kerr, Randy Steele, Dave Carter. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. About the work. The sculpture was inspired by a trip to the Saharan Desert. There, sentinel standing there, larger than life. I was intrigued by the botanical arrangement, the ribs, ribs of the way the spines were on the rib. So after I went home and thought about it for a while, I started to play around. Those rods, those steel rods, because they were available. And the structure is the following. The outside is a catenary arch. It's like this. Or like that. It's a catenary arch. You see it on the bridges in architecture. So the outside form is a catenary arch. Each rib is fortified and is constructed with this method, like log cabin style. So that one interlocks with the other one. It becomes a very solid, strong member. It becomes also a descriptive piece of information. I wanted to introduce a new element into it, and that was to include a stone. The stone is there to express the gravity, the pull on those bars, and also to introduce motion. It was an empty space. It needed something. I put the stone in there. It sways in the wind gently. When you think there's no wind, it still moves. So I thought it was just wonderful for that purpose. It also gave it what I thought was the most important element. It fulfilled the sculpture just like the 7 principles in the church. Without them, there is no real form. There's no church. It's just not working. So I kind of made that solid connection. But the idea is that the stone gives you some movement and tension to express that form. On the next piece, this is also coming from the desert, different approach, same kind of construction. I photographed my younger son, who's about 7 feet tall. The sculpture is 10 feet. I had to make it a little bigger. And I photographed my son. Then I took the photograph and enlarged it, and I converted it to geometry. Every anatomical point was converted, put a point there. So the shoulder is a point, the elbow is a point, the head is a point, and so on, all the way down from all directions. And that is no different than our ancient people looked at the stars and drew a connection from point to point to point and called it Orion. And then you see the figure and the belt and the sword and all that. It's no different. It gave me a way of composing in a new way. And that piece is it's also 10 feet tall. It's stainless steel. And one of the things that it also includes is motion, but this time you provide the motion, the viewer, because as you walk by, you will notice a moire pattern, no different than when you drive by the sand fences, or in the Midwest, we call them snow fences. As you drive by, they vibrate because the eye can't focus on this or that, and so it vibrates. So that was another way of creating motion in the sculpture. I think that's all I want to say, except one other thing. We have a wonderful exhibit in the community room done by 4 members who took the workshop that was on the auction in the fall, and we finally were able to carry it out. And their work is on the exhibit there, so if you have a chance during coffee break, come on in and take a look. It's beautiful work there. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Please sing along.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla volar, sube la mar, hasta molder la justicia de la vida. Arraígame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. Fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí.
I'm happy to introduce this month's Share the Plate recipient, Fine Food Bank. Fine is the largest hunger relief and food rescue mission in our region. Every $20 donated translate into 100 meals. Fine's president, Debbie Espinosa, has said that in her over 25 years of experience in the nonprofit sector, this is one of the greatest domestic hunger crises of her lifetime. Debbie will share their organization's activities in the following video presentation. Please give generously to this worthwhile cause.
I'm Debbie Espinosa, President and CEO of Find Food Bank, and I'm here with you from one of our weekly distribution sites. As the only regional food bank, one of our roles is bringing food to communities that are especially vulnerable to food insecurity, like our mobile market here at Valley View Elementary School in Coachella. We serve the community on a greater scale by supplying over 90% of our region's food pantries, soup kitchens, homeless shelters, and nonprofit organizations with the food they need to serve their respective communities.
Candace Nichols. I am the Program Director at the LGBTQ Community Center of the Desert. We basically serve the LGBT community. Of course, anyone can access our services. You don't have to be LGBT or Q. And we provide all kinds of support groups, classes, programming. The Community Food Bank at the center is one of our programs. Well, I can tell you, if we didn't have the food from Find Food Bank, this would be a full-time 24-hour a day job, because we'd have to source our own food. I mean, right now we do have food drives and our community members who drop off food, and we have food donations, but that would never be able to suffice serving the numbers that we're seeing now. So without Find Food Bank, we'd just be constantly trying to source all the food that we need to distribute.
Volunteers are so essential to keeping the food bank running by sorting, performing quality control, packaging, and distributing the food that goes out into the community. The passion of our community members to give back is the lifeblood of our work at the food bank. Find Food Bank is the first line of defense against hunger, serving as a lifeline to residents who cannot afford to feed themselves or their family.
So what you do is very important, because there are some people that are worse shape than we are. I'm not saying we're in best of shape, but you know, I mean, I have a retirement, but it doesn't go very far.
There's so many people that need help, and you can't judge someone by driving up in a real nice car with me, but they could like have, you know, just a few cans of food to eat at night. You don't know. You just don't know. And that's how we all are right now. It's hard for everybody, so.
At the beginning, we were very stressed, both of us. We were worried that at one point, I was like, what if we lose the house? What if we can't afford for the payments? But there's been a lot of help. I mean, the food, you guys know that those extra $40, $50 a week or more that I would have to spend on groceries, I could save it and put it towards another bill or something else, something that I needed.
Please do give as generously as you can to the Find Food Bank. They do really powerful work in our region. These are the joys and sorrows of this community on this day, March of 2022. Blessings for Joan and Gloria's grandson, Liam, as he heals from a broken leg sustained while skating on a frozen lake. 6. For all our trans brothers and sisters who find the hate hurled toward them too much to live with, rest in peace, Rye Farrell. Cheryl shares joy celebrating her brother's 10th birthday. Sorry, I'm having trouble reading. 70th birthday. That makes more sense. Thank you, Cheryl. Oh, there it is. There's the zero there. Thank you, Cheryl. Celebrating his 70th birthday. And sad that he's no longer with us. Cheryl is celebrating. Sad that he's no longer with us. And there are joys and sorrows that lie deep in the quiet of our hearts that are unspoken this morning. Small and large joys of our lives and the world around us. Small and great pain in our own lives and in the world around us. We hold in our heart this week especially the people of Ukraine, people of the countries surrounding Ukraine, and all those who struggle for freedom and safety in a world with too much war. We hold them in our hearts, alongside a small but powerful hope for peace. We gather here together today, a moment of prayer, meditation. I invite you to be comfortable in your seats. Just breathe deeply into this space. Be still. Still surrounded by this loving community, grounded in the love that informs and enlivens us, that gives us joy, that brings us connection. I'm going to sing a short phrase. I'm going to repeat it. I invite you to join me when you feel comfortable. And if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay. Sing in the quiet of your heart. Be still and know that day and night, be still and know that dark and light are one holy circle. Be still and know that day and night, be still and know that dark and light are one holy circle. Be still and know that day and night, be still and know that dark and light are one holy circle. Be still and know that day and night, be still and know that dark and light are one holy circle. Be still and know that day and night, be still and know that dark and light are one holy circle. May all beings know peace. May all beings know an end to suffering. May all beings know love.
Now I will read my reflection. Balance always reminds me of a playground seesaw, how my body was too light to ride it without the other person toward the ground. A seesaw only focuses on physical weight, physical balance. But what does it truly mean to have balance? To not fall, to be stable on a bicycle? Balance means making time in between the stress lines of life and mixing in the healing your soul needs to thrive, to be alive. We balance our duties and our worries with the joy and sweetness of content. We balance the anxieties and nervous feelings with love and the peace that keeps us balancing on our own seesaw and keeps the seesaw perfectly in the air, balanced.
As I start today, I'd like to engage you in a little bit of imagination. So if it helps your imagination to close your eyes, that would be great. If not, that's okay too. But imagine yourself, now you're safe, being out in space. Maybe you're in a spacesuit or a spaceship, or you're just there and okay. You're above the plane of our solar system. You can, looking down on all of these balls rotating around the fire at the center of our solar system. And you look down on this little blue-green ball that we're on, spinning on its axis and traveling around and around that fiery ball that is our sun. That sun which brings us warmth and light and life. And if you look closely, you'll notice that the ball doesn't spin with its center straight up and down. Its axis leans off to one side. And this tilt, this slight imperfection means that sometimes the top of the spinning ball is leaning toward the warmth of the sun. Other times it's pointing away. And if we imagine ourselves back on that spinning ball and watching the sun rise and set each day, we notice that it doesn't always rise or set at the same time. We don't always get the same amount of light each day. And in fact, as we move from December towards March, the days get longer and longer until just about this time of year, we notice, like our ancestors noticed, that there's just as much day as there is night. And then the days keep getting longer and longer and longer until late June, when the cycle reverses itself and the nighttime begins to take more and more of the daylight. And all of this occurs because this blue-green ball that we are part of has a slight tilt. And all that little tilt makes all the difference. It's the reason for the seasons. And there are two moments of the year, literally moments, when the center of the sun is exactly on the same plane as the center of the equator of our planet. When we experience time of equal day and equal night. These are the equinoxes. One of them happens around the 22nd of September, the fall or autumnal or southward equinox. And one happens around this time of year, around the 20th of March. Actually, this year, that moment happened 90 minutes ago, minus 2 minutes, at 8:33 a.m. Pacific time. The spring, the vernal, the northward equinox. Well, thank you for that science lesson, Ian. Yeah, that's what the equinox is, so what does that mean to us? Well, I'm pretty sure that the universe doesn't set up lessons for us to learn. But we always have the opportunity to find meaning, to decide to learn, to see the moment or movement we are part of and ask ourselves what it might show us about our life or our neighbors or our relationships. And so from the movement of our wobbly little planet around the sun, these are some of my reflections today. Now, my colleague Victoria Weinstein said the following in a recent piece of writing she posted about liberal religion and the internet. She said, "The minister's job in this era is not just to instruct in scriptural literacy, but to read the whole world as a sacred text." I think it's profoundly true. It's part of why my sermons with you are drawn from observation and from the fiction I read and watch, Doctor Who and Star Trek and Ursula Le Guin. It's part of why what I've been trying to model is I've told you small stories from my own life and the lives of people I know that have prompted me to wondering and pondering and theological reflection. Prompted me to ask, what can I learn from this? What meaning can I make from it? And it's not really just this era in which this has been important, this learning to read the world as sacred text. Our pagan and Wiccan neighbors and kin in this room and across the world and throughout their history have made the world itself and the cycle of nature the sacred text around which the ritual and their understanding of the place in the world are formed. Out of the encounter with the natural world, they build meaning and pattern in life. The earth and its seasons, plant and animal life, the cycles of birth and death, planting and harvest, the story of a relationship between our planet and our sun that I just told you. All of these are the experience, the sacred text, which can be read and experienced and interacted with. Now, I'm speaking from my understanding of these traditions, not as a practitioner, but as a curious and sympathetic and appreciative observer and explorer. Humility needs to be the watchword when we're discussing traditions and practices that are not our own. And there are many different forms of paganism and Wiccan traditions from many parts of the world. Many traditions celebrate around this time of year the festival of Ostara here at the vernal spring equinox. In many traditions, mostly those from northwestern Europe, the Anglo-Saxon god Ostara, or Eostre, is honored this time of year. She is the goddess of spring, to whom rabbits were sacred. She's why we have Easter bunnies. Her name is, in fact, linked by sound and meaning to Easter and east and aurora and the words for dawn in Greek and Latin. This time is a time of balance, a time of rebirth and renewal, a time of awakening, a time to celebrate the return after the sleep or death of winter. Time to watch the world and see the life around you that lay dormant or invisible over the months of winter creep or stretch or explode, depending what part of the world you're in, back into existence. It is a time to celebrate the fact that despite our drive and desire to see time as linear, as moving ever forward, despite our fears that the passing of time means loss, alongside the losses we actually suffer, the world around us reawakens each year. The power of life is in its cycles. There is birth and death. There is birth again. Plants go greener and then blossom and then shed their fruit and then retreat as the weather gets colder, only to grow green again once the sun returns. We see these themes repeated in so many of the world's traditions that have important central festivals at this time of year: the awakening of Easter for Christians, the coming out of captivity of Passover for Jews, the new year of Nowruz for Persians and Zoroastrians. From our planet's story, we learn that the equinox is a moment of balance, a time of equal darkness and equal light, day and night, perfectly equal. The ideas and practices and writings of Taoism are deeply grounded in this idea of balance, the balance of yin and yang. The understanding that the reality we inhabit lives with the presence of balanced opposites that create, influence, and contain each other. The epic poem that tells the story of the creation of the world in Ursula Le Guin's Earthsea books begins only in silence the word, only in dark the light, only in dying life, bright the hawk's flight on the empty sky. Le Guin was deeply influenced by the Taoist idea that contrast is built into our reality, and the balance of that contrast and our understanding of it are important learning for us. One of my spiritual practices this year is to gain a deeper understanding of the core text of Taoism, Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching, to read it a little more closely and more intentionally, to listen to lectures and reflections from others, to get a sense of how it might bring some grounding. Derek Lin's translation of the second chapter of the Tao Te Ching says, "Being and non-being produce each other. Long and short reveal each other. High and low support each other. Music and voice harmonize each other. Front and back follow each other." These features of the world and our experience of them do not exist without their opposites. Long has no meaning unless it's in relationship to something that we understand as short. To say that a piece of fabric or a house has a front means that it also has a back. Like pagan traditions, the Taoist text knows that darkness and light create each other and that both are necessary. The words I opened our service today from Ursula Le Guin, light is the left hand of darkness, and darkness the right hand of light. This time of year, when light and dark, day and night are balanced, can have deeper meaning when we understand the ways that these seeming opposites are central to our experience. Have you ever had the experience of being at a restaurant with a large group of people? You placed your order a while ago and you're wrapped up in telling stories and sharing memories and catching up. And then you look up toward the kitchen door and you see the server coming towards you with your order. Everyone's order, all at once, balanced on arms and hands and elbows. Anyone who thinks that waiting tables is unskilled labor is fooling themselves. I often watch with awe as the server wends their way through crowded tables carrying all that food and drink, and most of the time not spilling anything. Sometimes our lives feel like that, don't they? They feel like trying to carry plates and bowls and glasses through a crowded restaurant. Family and work and health and hobbies and safety and school and socializing and planning for the future. Balancing all of that can be a real feat. And this pandemic time has been especially a deep challenge for many of us. How do we balance all of the needs of our lives in the face of isolation and forced disconnection, in the face of the emotional strain that we have had? One of my colleagues and her family developed a system during the pandemic isolation to make sure there was balance in their lives, that they knew they could hold it all. Not only that everything got done, more the focus was on making sure that one kind of activity didn't end up pushing everything out of her way, that her teenage sons didn't end up playing video games all day, or she and her spouse didn't end up watching Netflix all day, or making sourdough bread all day, or attending Zoom meetings and classes all day. That those were not the sole things happening in the day. She wrote, her name is Tandy Rogers, by the way. She wrote on her blog, "We refer to it in our household as pie." As in, how are you doing with your pie? Or, got a full pie yet? She said she repurposed the game pieces from Trivial Pursuit, you know, the one with the 6 holes and the 6 little wedge-shaped pieces. One holder for each family member, and the little triangles each got marked with a different letter. S was for social. O for occupational or work-related things. There was another S for spiritual. P meant physical activity. I meant intellectual activity. And E was taking emotional care of the self. Every day they would check in with each other to see how the balancing of their pie went. Not to judge or evaluate or critique, but to invite each other into some balance and health. To support each other in crafting balanced days when all of their needs were being met. Now, during summers in high school and college, I worked at an A&W restaurant. It was a hamburger place. This was back when A&W, I don't know if you remember this, served its root beer in those big frosty glass mugs. Part of everybody's job who worked there was to go through the restaurant occasionally and collect the mugs off the tables and bring them back to the kitchen to be washed. So one day I was collecting the mugs and I had a whole tray full. On my way back to the kitchen, I stopped to transfer the mugs to the busing cart, and I put the tray down, balanced across the top of a short wall. And without thinking, I took 2 mugs off one end of the tray. And the inevitable happened. Like someone had jumped off one side of the seesaw when you were sitting on it. What does balance really mean? Tess asked us earlier. Is it not falling? Is it to be stable? Deeper than balancing this or that, making sure the mugs on one side of the tray don't outweigh the mugs on the other side, more central than making sure there's a bit of everything going on, balance is as much about us existing at the center of it all as it is about what's going on around us. As Tess said, it is the piece that keeps us balancing on our own seesaw and keeps the seesaw perfectly in the air. Thanks for that reminder, Tess. The reminder that as important as it is to pay attention to the pieces of our lives and the ways that good and bad interplay, it is also important to pay attention to the ways we respond, the ways we hold ourselves amidst the busyness and impermanence of life. Terry Pratchett was a prolific fantasy author. You may know him from the TV show Good Omens, which was based on the book he wrote with Neil Gaiman. Pratchett, who passed away around this time in March of 2015, is known mostly for his stories of a place called Discworld, a land of witches and goblins, wizards, and personifications of death. The Discworld books are hilarious and also deeply profound in the way they see the realities and challenges of living life amongst others and responding to the eccentricity of fate. One subset of the books is about a young girl named Tiffany Aking, who is learning how to be a witch, and learning how to be the witch that her community needs her to be. In his book, I Shall Wear Midnight, Tiffany reflects on balance this way. Balance. She said it was all about balance. That had been one of the first things that she had learned. The center of the seesaw has neither up nor down, but upness and downness flow through it while it remains unmoved. You had to be the center of the seesaw, so the pain flowed through you, not into you. It's very hard, but she could do it. It's not that we disengage ourselves from the world around us. We don't remove ourselves or our heart or our spirit from the day-to-day pains and triumphs of our lives, but we learn through time and experience, for some of us through faith, through those spiritual practices we've been talking about. We learn that we have the ability to respond intentionally and not just react. We have the choice to be the center of the seesaw, connected but unbattered. And so how then do we choose to respond to the anguish and chaos of the world around us? Let's assume that we have been practicing and learning and have the skills and attitudes we need to keep ourselves at an even keel in the chop and swell of the ocean we sail. How then do we respond? Maybe it is our work to be the balance we seek, to respond to pain with humility and a healing presence, to respond to hopelessness with passion and connection, to respond to violence and dehumanization with resistance and justice, to respond to indifference and fear with love and steadfast faithfulness to each other and the thriving of life, and to respond to a world full of the noise of war with the joyful, loving, soaring, peaceful music of our hearts, singing a song of joy and hope and simple love and what there might be. May that be our song. May it be so. Invite our choir up.
Please join me as Reverend Ian extinguishes our chalice. He extinguishes flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together.
Now I'd like to invite Sandy Sladen up from our 8th Principal group and share some information.
Morning. I'm here today representing the 8th Principal ambassadors, and I just want to name who those are. And if you're here, you might stand up or wave. I don't think we're all here, but Bryna Bloom, Hiroshi Yamaguchi, Denise Jansen-Eager, Sue Kaspari, and Walter Jendell. And if you're on Zoom, you can wave too. You'll notice that we have special tags on. That's so that you'll feel free to approach us and ask any questions, make any comments, give us any feedback you have on what you may or be learning about the 8th Principal. We're a work group that was created by the DIB ministry, that's Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Ministry, that includes Reverend Ian, as well as our president, Linda Savard, who are also extremely supportive of this effort. Just a quick show of hands, both on Zoom and in person. How many of you have heard of or are somewhat familiar with the 8th Principal? Good, that's great, actually. So we hope you've been reading about it in the weekly and monthly newsletters. And starting today, we're going to be having an information table out on the plaza, both before and after services, and representatives from our group will be there. And we'll have some material if you're interested. And we really encourage you to come and talk to us. We're anxious to hear what people are thinking. For those of you who are not familiar with the proposed 8th Principal, I thought I would read it quickly. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. So we are very excited to announce that tomorrow evening from 6:30 to 8, we'll be hosting a Zoom gathering with guest speakers from our fellow UU Church of Long Beach. They've been through the process of adopting the 8th Principal for their congregation and have begun the work of implementing its intention. We thought this was a great opportunity to learn from them and their experience, and they've been gracious to volunteer their time for us. So there will be plenty of time for questions and answers and discussion with them and among ourselves on this Zoom. And the link was sent out in a constant comment message to everyone this week, and it's also in the weekly newsletter that came out on Friday. So we really hope you'll join us. Thank you.
Thank you to Sandy and other members of the 8th Principal team who are working to help us learn a little bit more as we make decisions about the 8th Principal. Just a reminder, the Tao Te Ching calls us to see that being and non-being produce each other. Long and short reveal each other, high and low, support each other, music and voice harmonize each other, front and back follow each other. As we leave this gathering, our hearts full, our spirits lifted, our ears joyfully ringing with the sound of music, our eyes delighted, sight of our dear kin, may we recall and be held by the sheer beauty and joy of life as we encounter and explore the world. May the balance we nurture in ourselves bring clarity and steadfastness. And may the love that enfolds us all thrive through our kindness, our compassion, and our work for justice and for peace. Go in peace, my friends, to love and serve the world.